Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. This week I'm just going to cover a couple of my favourite things from Chinese martial arts, a historical outline by David Ross. Awesome book. These things are cool. Hope you enjoy. So if we talk about the internal styles, and this is where it gets really interesting. So by the beginning of the Qing dynasty, I think David Ross says in the book, anyone who does Chinese martial arts, the idea of breathing and some sort of breathing exercise and the circulation of qi is part of pretty much every Chinese martial art. There's no division of internal and external, essentially. Styles that we think of external now were just other styles, and they still had this idea of this qi circulation and these internal ideas that sometimes get bandied about. There wasn't that differentiation between one style or another. So David Ross gives the example of Xing Quan and goes into details, how its origins were from the military, and there's evidence to suggest that, opposed to it coming from the depths of Wudang Mountain and being spread throughout China. It had military origins and existed for 200 years before it was labelled as an internal art, which is quite interesting. So he goes on to talk about this group that forms in Beijing. So this group back in 1894 get together, and they're just going to cross-train. So there's some teachers who have some students, and they're going to cross-train with each other to benefit and learn from each other and hopefully improve their skills. So they named the group Neijia Quan, and it just so happens that that name had already been used. The practitioners who got together to do this cross-training did some Tai Chi Quan, they did some Xi Quan and Bai Gua Quan. Between them, they formed this group, Neijia Quan, and that name had been used. And so it had been used by someone who had no links to any of those three styles, the styles that we think of as internal styles. But in fact, those characters for Neijia Quan had been used as part of a veiled criticism of the government of the time. So an epitaph had been written for a chap called Wang Zhengnan. For a chap called Wang Zhengnan in 1669, and basically it sums up this man. It's a veiled attack on the government. So it was a criticism of the Manchu government because you couldn't openly criticize them at the time. But in that epitaph, where it does mention Neijia Quan, mentions the method of this Wang Zhengnan who had passed away, and says that he learnt his style from Zhang Sanfeng, the guy who everyone says the origins of Tai Chi and its links to Wudang and all the rest of it, and how it could beat up Shaolin. And so the epitaph was very appealing to people because it's this idea of the weak, the oppressed people of China at the time overcoming the strong, the Manchu government who were oppressing them. Post any comment on Chinese martial arts at all, and the author goes into this a bit more in the book about how some of the context behind that. It so happened because of that, then people research the Neijia Quan school, find that, and then it gets spread for the internal arts and all the rest of it. Yeah, that's quite interesting that after that point then, and that is referenced later on in history, of a division between internal and external Chinese styles. Before that point in 1894, there hadn't been that division between internal and external, and after that point there are references to internal and external styles because of that group in Beijing. So I'm going to skip huge chunks of the book, and in particular a bit on the Boxer Rebellion. The Boxer Rebellion is a huge, important thing in Chinese history, and the influence that has on Chinese martial arts and how Chinese martial arts are perceived in Chinese society after that point. But we haven't got all day. Read the book if you want to find out some more about that, or do your own research. But what is cool in the book is, just because I'm a sucker for this kind of thing, David Ross goes on to talk about these organised competitions in the Republican era that just sound awesome. So I just like a bit of fighting. So part of the nationalist spirit, and to try and promote Chinese martial arts, which was a veiled thing for China becoming strong in the world stage, they organised this event in Nanjing in 1928. So they organised this competition in 1928. God, I'd be a terrible historian. So this competition in 1929, they organise basically some forms, weapons, and all the rest of it. But there's almost like these preliminary stages that lead up to the fighting, which is cool. And then of the 600 entrants, like 150 get to start fighting. It's open hand fighting. I think he mentions there is some weapon sparring as well. I'm assuming that's like sort of kendo with all the gear, so no one died. But with the open hand stuff, there's people who have basically got zero, some of them with very little martial experience, which is kind of interesting given the military context of a lot of the other stuff and challenge matches. So I don't quite understand why that is, but that's for me to go and do some research on. This fight, or these series of fights, it's basically the first UFC. No eye gouging, no hitting to the throat, and no groin strikes. After that, everything's fair game. Can you imagine? Apparently it was an absolute bloodbath. So many people got injured that they had to stop the competition or postpone it or whatever, cancel it, and they just voted for who the winner was because so many people got injured as a result of this fighting. So that was 1928, and then 1929 they do another one in Hangzhou, and again, I mean, surprise, surprise, you put the same thing into the equation, the same thing happens. People get hurt quite severely. There's lots of injuries, but they do let it play out till someone ends up being the victor. So I won't spoil that bit for you in the book, but it sort of goes into talking about which particular style did well and all the rest of it. And that's kind of interesting because since reading that, I've then started to read some other books, and some of the things that are mentioned in time. For example, I've read Martin Watt's book on Yong Chun White Crane. Some of the things that are happening nationally affect what happens throughout the rest of China. So it's just cool. But what is also interesting, is pointed out in the book, is that of all these people entering these competitions, you've got people who do Xingyi and Tai Chi and Bagua and stuff. No one won with some mystical internal whatever that defeated all these opponents. It turned out that the bigger you are and the stronger you are, the more likely you are to win. Which is borne out in the results of these competitions. It's just physics at the end of the day. But it's really cool hearing about these actual things that took place. It sounds like it was a huge, huge event, so I'm sure there's loads more stuff on the historical record to go and find out about that. So it was just awesome. I could go on and on about various things in the book, but like I said, it's not fair to the author. If you're interested, give it a read. It's certainly given me a lot of food for thought and some more research to go and do and find out some more about this stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video this week. I've learned so much from that book, and yeah, I'm just going to keep doing some of these book reviews, just trying to educate myself on this. What I'll do is, for all the books that I'm reviewing, I'll put them up in a playlist here for you guys. As it gets updated, you can click that or add it to your favourites, whatever. Do me a favour and hit subscribe. That would really help me out. I'd appreciate it. Any books you want me to read, put them in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next video.